Shihab Rattansi is at the White House for us. So Shihab, you were listening to that press conference. Once again, Donald Trump saying he can get this done, but we've heard that so many times before, right?
But he's determined, and actually the Russian account of the phone call was Donald Trump kept repeating multiple times his mission to bring peace, to add this ninth, in his counting, conflict that he has resolved, during his term. And you've got to say, Vladimir Zelensky, he just arrived at Joint Air Force Base, Andrews, just a few hours ago, and was reported to have been surprised by news of the call. The Russians instigated this call ahead of the Zelensky meeting here at the White House on Friday, and really do rather seem to have pulled the rug under what was supposed to be one of the main focuses of the discussion, at the very least threatening Russia with the possibility of the US supplying Tomahawk long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine. And even in that press conference, though, thinking aloud, he's kind of saying what we all have been hearing from the defense establishment. It was always a bit of a head-scratcher because the US's own supplies of Tomahawk cruise missiles are so depleted. It takes a very long time to even produce them. And in fact, Ukraine doesn't even have the means to deliver them. So there was always that question which the Russians have expressed. I mean, does that mean that the US would be firing the Tomahawks on behalf of the Ukrainians? Because they don't have the delivery systems for Tomahawk cruise missiles. But anyway, Donald Trump musing aloud then in the Oval Office, we don't want to deplete our own stocks. We've got to find out, maybe we can do it, but we have our own needs right now. So that's really pulled the rug from under Zelensky for that point, at the very least, of perceived leverage, the threats to Russia that he was hoping to show with a unified stance with Donald Trump in the Oval Office on Friday.
Shihab Rattansi there, live for us from the White House. Thank you. Now, Harlan Ullman is a senior advisor at the Atlantic Council. He joins us from Washington, D.C. This wasn't on the cards, but then it suddenly appeared, a phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin 24 hours before Vladimir Zelensky gets to the White House. This is a political masterstroke by Vladimir Putin, do you think?
That's an interesting question. I think there's an issue of coordination problems, and you got to realize that Vladimir Putin is extraordinarily bright. Though he speaks fluent English, he prefers to use a translator because he says it gives me time to think. And I'm just worried that when President Trump meets with President Putin, for some reason, Putin has the upper hand. He's the dominant male. And it's not because I think he's got compromise or any kind of incriminating things on Trump. I just think that he imposes his will on Trump, and Trump is determined to get a negotiation going. And so I think Putin is operating, frankly, from a stronger position, personality-wise.
Now, Harlan, there's been so much talk, and we got into it with Shihab earlier about these Tomahawk cruise missiles. But Donald Trump was very clear here. We have to have these Tomahawk cruise missiles for our own defense. We can't just give them to Ukraine. So what does Zelensky, going into this meeting with Donald Trump, what cards does he have to play?
I guess none. There are about a couple of thousand, maybe 3,000 Tomahawks. Some of them are very, very old. And you're correct when you cited that they need land-based launchers. We're not going to fire them. I think that Trump is using Tomahawks as a way to leverage Putin. I think he's going to say, if you don't come across, we are going to give Tomahawks to the Ukrainians. And I think Putin will say, go ahead, do it. I think he will be able to Trump do that, because I'm not sure the Tomahawks would make really a great difference. Ukraine has the ability to target energy supplies and even Russian facilities that are making drones. We have been difficult in terms of letting them unleash all their forces, though we've been giving them some information. So I think that the Tomahawks are a red herring. And in any event, Europeans can give them long-range missiles in any event. So we'll see if Trump is able to come across with some kind of negotiation. He miraculously engineered something in Gaza, but I'm afraid that step one is not going to be able to proceed to successive steps. You saw that Hamas has publicly executed 8 people and is marching around in uniform. So there are real problems up ahead. One hopes Gaza will be good. One hopes about Ukraine, but hope ain't a strategy, unfortunately.
It's not a strategy, but let's just go back to January 20th when Donald Trump took over as president. He said, 24 hours. I can do it in 24 hours. I can have peace with Ukraine in that period. I was in Ukraine at the time. Most Ukrainians thought that that simply meant that Donald Trump was going to carve off a chunk of Ukraine, give it to Vladimir Putin, and everybody could climb down. That didn't seem to happen, but that is back on the table for a quick fix, is it not?
Trump has said publicly as of 2 days ago, it's now up to the Europeans. He will sell weapons to Europe, who will then transfer them to Ukraine. Trump is cutting and running. He's going to say now the negotiations are up to Ukraine, Russia, and Europe. We are merely the watchers now. We're no longer the participants, except that we will be able to sell weapons to Europe that will be transferred to Ukraine. He is washing his hands, in my view, of the issue, hoping that this negotiation can lead to something. And if it doesn't, it's going to be in Europe's interest and Europe's responsibility, not ours.
I just want to move on to a separate topic. We've just heard in the last half an hour that the Secretary of Defense of the US, Pete Hegseth, has fired a senior admiral, the guy in charge of Southern Command, which is the part of the world where America is shooting boats out of the water in Venezuela. He's an African-American senior general, only been in the job for about a year. What do you make of that?
First of all, he's an admiral. Second, I commend him. I'm told that he quit, wasn't fired. And what he's saying is that what we are doing is illegal, strategically stupid, and politically inept. We have 10,000 sailors and Marines down there, a number of ships. Just because they're there means it's going to be far difficult to maintain deployments. And what are we doing in Venezuela? Venezuela isn't exporting drugs to the United States in any numbers. Colombia and other parts of South America, Central America are. And so we're picking on Maduro for some reason that Trump has a hatred of Maduro, much as he had a hatred of a lot of Americans, such as former FBI Director Jim Comey, who he's had indicted over nonsensical charges. So this is something I can't understand. It's inexplicable. We don't want to be engaged in Latin America, the Caribbean, the way we are. I think the commander of Southern Command stood up, held his ground, and what happened, like so many other senior officers, he got fired. This is absolutely outrageous and despicable, but that's where we are.
Harlan Ullman, thank you so much, live for us there from Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't miss out to get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.